Beloved Saints, today's 5-minute message of redemptive history is about the tunic, or garment of the high priest, from the 6th book of the Redemptive History series, The Eternal High Priest of the Covenantal Oath. God commanded the high priest to wear special garments in order to reveal the glory, holiness, beauty, and redemptive ministry of the high priesthood. At this time, let us share God's grace by examining the tunic which both the high priest and the priest wore. Exodus 39 verse 27 states, "For Aaron and his sons they made tunics of fine linen, the work of a weaver." Here, the tunic was a one-piece garment worn inside the robe next to the flesh. Its sleeves came down to the wrist and its length down to the heels. Exodus 28 verse 39 states that the material for the tunic was fine linen, which demonstrates that the tunic of the priest was finely woven with the finest of linen threads. Also, we can truly understand the redemptive historical significance through the Hebrew word for tunic. The word tunic is ketanoth in Hebrew, and this means to cover. The tunic was not used only during Moses' time. Adam and Eve were also clothed with this garment. When they lived in the Garden of Eden, not knowing shame initially, they were clothed in the glory of God. However, after they sinned, they felt shame because of their nakedness and sewed fig leaves together to make loin coverings. At that time, God made garments of skin for them. The word for the loin coverings made of sewn fig leaves is hagor in Hebrew, and it refers to a garment that barely covers the loins. Moreover, as time passes, the fig leaves would lose moisture and decompose. On the other hand, the garments of skin is ketanoth in Hebrew. Genesis 3:21 states, "The Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them." This ketanoth that the Adam and Eve wore was just like the tunic of the priests, a long garment that covered from the shoulders down to the feet. Everyone, what does this teach us? This teaches us that man-made garments are useless in covering the shame of sin. God shed the blood of an animal in order to make the ketanoth for fallen man. This foreshadows Jesus Christ, who would come as the high priest. He would shed his precious blood and offer the atoning sacrifice, thereby completely covering the sin and transgression of fallen mankind and clothing them with garments of righteousness. In the Bible, Jesus was stripped 3 times before he was crucified. First, the Roman soldiers stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. They put a crown of thorns on his head and a reed in his hand and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." This is in Matthew 27, verses 28 to 29. The second time was after they mocked him. They took the scarlet robe off and put his own garments back on him and led him out to be crucified. This is in Matthew 27, verse 31. The third time was when Jesus was about to be nailed to the cross. They removed his clothes again. They divided his garment into 4 parts, and each person took a piece, but only one person took the tunic. This is in Matthew chapter 27, verse 35. In such a way, Jesus was stripped and subjected to all sorts of shame and punishment in order to clothe us, sinners, with the garments of righteousness. Beloved saints, let us realize the redemptive administration of God through this study on the tunic of the high priest. Let us meditate on Jesus, who was stripped of his clothes and shed his blood on the cross, which covered his entire body like a garment. He endured such suffering and death to redeem us from our transgression and sin. Thus, let us be thankful for his grace of redemption. I bless in the name of the Lord.